Welcome everyone. Today we'll have a new Falconer guide, and in this Falconer build, I want to demonstrate and also show you guys my friend Half-Mind super speedy leveling Falconer. And this was the exact or almost exact build that my friend Half-Mind used to get to world top 15 in ranking. So as you watch the replay, you can see how speedy and also how mobile this Highlander Falconer is. Yes, he's using a javelin, wearing a little cute head, and also he's extremely mobile, pretty much one-shotting everything on the map. And this was one of the ways he was leveling super fast, because this build required minimal item or pretty much no item requirement. You can make this build work with almost any item, and it's incredibly powerful in terms of leveling, pushing over 200 corruption, and also killing everything on the map. Now you may be wondering, what do I mean by 15 leveling? In terms of the rankings, I do believe Maxroll had a ranking system, and Half-Mind made a screenshot. You can see that he was 15 as a rogue falconer when he reached level 100. Now later on the leaderboard has changed a little bit. Now Half-Mind is rank 22, as you can see over here, as the falconer. So there are quite a few falconers that was leveling, and also marksmen, and also blade dancers. So this is on the rogue class, of course. So within the rogue class, he was 15, now he's 22. So let's watch a little bit of the build, and I'll show you guys the build and how you can be leveling super fast. What you can see is this is a combination of armor shredding using the ballista and also using dive bomb to do the most damage. He's extremely mobile with aerial assault, and most of the time just by aerial assaulting he can one-shot enemies with about 50,000 crits. Because the build has so much armor penetration, pretty much everything melts within corruption 200. And yes, I forgot to mention, he was able to clear corruption 200, and this is where the replays are demonstrating as well. Now, I wouldn't say this is going to be the best endgame build because it had minimal item requirement. But simplicity and also the speed of the build is extremely cool, and the ability to use minimal HP and also defensive gears, notice that he only have 1000 HP, is pretty interesting as well. So I wanted to show you guys this version of the Falconer build. Now, one of the highlights for this Falconer build is the ability to use dive bomb to strike enemies with the talent passive. So notice there's a pack of monsters. After striking, he's got a stack of 23 of the talents, the Falcon's passive with dive bomb. Now, let me have a look how much he hit over here. So the first time he strike, he has a 23 stack, and the second time he strike, let's see if I can pause it. No, we don't get to see it, like 50,000 crits, but he can easily crit 50,000 close to 100,000 with a combination of those simple spells. Now briefly coming over to one of the shade bosses, you can see that the Falcons are critical hitting for about 10, 20, up to 50,000, and he is pretty mobile. So fighting a 200 corruption boss, you don't really see a problem, and of course he was dodging the skills, right? This is not a face tanking build, he only have 1000 HP. Now he does have a 100% chance to dodge using a silver shot every 10 seconds. And this is one of his biggest mobility spells. Sometimes it looks pretty close, looks pretty scary, looks like he's gonna die, but he doesn't die. And the build has really fun parts because it's mobile and because the ability to dodge. It does really feel like you're playing a rogue, the Falconer. And yes, the build has some really good single target damage, as you can see in the replays, which I'll provide the entire replay for you guys to have a look of this incredibly cool simplicity build for the Falconer. Now coming over to the builder's guide. You can see that the builder's guide on the Falconer build has some very simple items. This particular unique javelin, it's something with some really high stats in terms of physical damage, additional physical damage, and also physical penetration. And in case you guys don't have the javelin, this particular item that is also dropped from Exalted mages also works perfectly. Now for those of you that didn't know, this particular sword and the javelin are dropped from Exalted mages. And the best ability for this sword is its ability to absorb other sword. Let me show you a live demonstration. I'm gonna put this sword on. This is not a legendary ride. Now I'm gonna absorb this ability from the sword, and all of a sudden I have a bunch of physical penetration for minions, and also additional damage and also additional area skills. So this is a very powerful sword that you can use for very early leveling. So Half-Mind decided to use the sword and also the spear as he was leveling, and this meant that he was getting minimal requirement for items as he was leveling with a Falconer. You can see a majority of his items are not going to be top end items, but they're pretty decent, and they're very straightforward, getting some physical damage, minion damage, additional skill ranks, and also a bit of armor shedding potential, and also some movement speed, and also mobility. Now briefly coming over to the skill combinations. One of the biggest highlights for the build is going to be the Talent Blades, and this was the talent passive I was talking about. Having the ability to hit multiple enemies gives you a stack which increases your critical chance, critical multipliers. This means the build doesn't need to build for critical chance or multipliers. You just have to build for high damage and also physical penetration. This is where the armor shouldn't come from with the Torrent, and also you are having additional ways to deal sustained damage using Falconer, which can be a hefty amount of burst damage. Together with the mobility gained from Aerial Assault, this build is incredibly speedy. Now over here you can also notice he has also perked for the decoy to give him additional movement speed. Having two decoys with additional movement speed meant he was also super speedy, and also I do believe the dive bomb will also explode the decoys, which is a pretty good interaction. Now what I do is I'll provide you guys with this particular builder plan, and so you can follow him as you transition from the mid game into the end game if you want some fast leveling for the Falconer. Before we get into the replays for the Falconer, because we have talked about the Falconer quite a few times, I didn't feel like we need to dive too deep because I'm sure you guys know about the Falconer. I have used the similar concept that Halfman taught me in the past, so which is one thing I just want to highlight with you guys. In terms of the passive for the Falconer, one level into a value point into Coordinate Fate allows you to have Silver Shot ability, and if you place your most shortest cooldown mobility skill like Aerial Assault on the Q button, each time you jump every 10 seconds you will gain Silver Shot. This is an incredibly defensive utility spell which allows you to have 100% dodge on the next hit every 10 seconds and gains 300 warding. Together with those two combinations, every 10 seconds I just have to jump once, I get 300 warding when something hits me, 1 dodge, and this allows Falconer to be super mobile and also super tanky, super defensive. So this is one of the biggest highlights for the Highlander Falconer. Make sure you put Aerial Assault on the Q button to take advantage of this one. So what I do now is I'll provide you guys with this entire replay of Halfman's leveling and also his progression through higher tier dungeons. So he said this is around the corruption level 200, and it is extremely fast, and because of simplicity of not needing too many items makes this build extremely powerful. Now before I finish, I also want to mention we will be looking at higher tier corruption level for Falconer builds, and yes, I have been making a few lower level Falconer builds. In the future we're looking into corruption 500 Falconer levels with the ballistas and also the moderation of the build. So at the moment we're looking at speedy build and also mobility build for the Falconer, but in the future we're looking to the end game pushing build for the Falconer and also single target builds. Now if you guys haven't subscribed, this is a really good time to do so, because I'll be learning with tons of the top meta, last epoch build from different players in terms of solo and also in terms of co-op to push for higher corruptions, 800, 2000 here, and also different ways of getting top leaderboard with arena with leveling. And in doing so, we'll be learning multiple builds from the best players in the world. So make sure you subscribe and join me on this adventure to learn with Last Epoch. And if you guys do have an amazing build, whether it's a fun build, it's a creative build, or maybe a top meta build, you can share with me on Discord, and I'll look into it, learn the build, and share with everyone on the Last Epoch community.
Hana.